This is the story that history forgot to tell you. Deep in the heart of Africa, 2,500 years ago, a technological innovation was unfolding. Furnaces blazed at temperatures that European metalworkers wouldn't achieve until the Industrial Revolution. While much of the world was just beginning to grasp the fundamentals of metalworking, African smiths had already mastered the transformation of earth into iron and carbon steel, creating technologies that would shape civilizations. For generations, we've been taught that the march of human innovation flowed from the Middle East through Europe and outward to the rest of the world. Far from being passive recipients of outside innovation, African cultures pioneered revolutionary metallurgical techniques that challenge our understanding of global history. The evidence lies buried in the soil of Nigeria, Tanzania, and Benin, evidence that rewrites the story of how humanity mastered metal. In the Nok culture of Nigeria, smiths developed sophisticated furnaces reaching temperatures of 1,300 degrees Celsius, centuries before comparable technologies appeared elsewhere. In Tanzania's Great Lakes region, innovative smelting techniques produced carbon steel millennia before colonial Europeans would marvel at its strength and versatility. These weren't isolated developments, but part of a vast technological tradition that spread across the continent. Why has this chapter of innovation remained hidden for so long? The answer lies in centuries of colonial narratives that systematically diminished African technological achievements to justify exploitation and control. Even today, our textbooks and museums continue to perpetuate the myth that metallurgical innovation was primarily a European story. Take a seat as archaeological discoveries and cutting-edge science reveal the true masters of metal who shaped humanity's relationship with iron. African metallurgists whose ingenuity created techniques so advanced that when European observers finally witnessed them centuries later, many refused to believe what they were seeing. This is not just Africa's untold story. It's a missing chapter in humanity's shared technological heritage, finally brought to light. Metallurgy, the science of extracting metals from their ores and crafting them into tools, weapons, and art, stands as one of humanity's most transformative technologies. The conventional narrative places its origins in the Near East, around 8000 BCE, with copper and bronze working. Iron, the more challenging metal, supposedly diffused from the Middle East around 1200 BCE. But this telling ignores compelling evidence from across the African continent. By 5000 BCE, ancient Egyptians were already working copper, creating tools and ornaments that demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of metalworking. Archaeological excavations at Madi and Buto in the Nile Delta have unearthed copper objects dating to this period, as documented in Rushdie Said's The Geology of Egypt in 2017. Copper metallurgy spread across North Africa, with evidence of early copper smelting found in Mauritania and Niger, dating to approximately 3000 BCE, as confirmed by slag deposits and crucible fragments excavated at Akjart and Agadez. As early as the first millennium BCE, ironworking appeared across sub-Saharan Africa. At Leja in Nigeria, radiocarbon dating places iron, smelting to at least 2000 BCE, far earlier than previously thought, and contemporaneous with the earliest known ironworking in the Near East. Professor Pamela Eze Uzomaka's extensive work at the Leja site, published in the Journal of African Archaeology, 2009, revealed over 800 iron smelting furnaces and massive slag blocks weighing up to 47 kilograms, indicating industrial-scale production. The striking simultaneity of ironworking across the continent has sparked one of archaeology's most heated debates. Was iron technology independently invented in Africa, or did it diffuse from the north? Evidence increasingly suggests multiple centers of independent innovation. The distinctive furnace designs found from West Africa to the Great Lakes region show unique characteristics with no parallels in European or Middle Eastern technologies. Ethnographic studies by Schmidt and Avery in 1978 documented the remarkable natural draft furnaces of Tanzania that stood over 2 meters tall and required no bellows, a technological solution not found in Eurasian traditions. These were not copies of foreign techniques. They were indigenous African innovations, created by people intimately familiar with their local resources and environmental conditions. By 1000 BCE, ironworking had become widespread across sub-Saharan Africa, with distinctive regional traditions developing unique approaches to the challenges of transforming ore into usable metal. The Nok culture of central Nigeria, the Bantu metalworkers of Central Africa, and the iron masters of the Great Lakes region each developed specialized techniques adapted to local ores and environmental conditions. On Nigeria's Jos Plateau in 1928, tin miners made an accidental discovery that would eventually challenge the entire narrative of technological development in Africa. As they dug, they unearthed remarkable terracotta sculptures of unprecedented sophistication, the first glimpse of a lost civilization that archaeologists would come to call Nok. The Nok culture flourished between approximately 1000 BCE and 300 CE, creating Africa's earliest known figurative art tradition. But it wasn't until the archaeological excavations led by Bernard Fagg in the 1940s and later by Joseph Jemker in the 1960s that the true technological achievements of the Nok people came to light. Fagg's initial findings, published in the Journal of the Historical Society of Nigeria, documented over 150 terracotta fragments alongside iron smelting remains, a crucial association that would rewrite African technological history. At Taruga and other Nok sites, archaeologists uncovered something even more significant than the famous sculptures. Extensive evidence of iron smelting dating to at least 550 BCE and possibly as early as 900 BCE, according to more recent radiocarbon dating by Fagg and Fleming. As Tylecote noted in his seminal work, The Early History of Metallurgy in Europe, this makes the Nok culture one of Africa's earliest iron-producing societies, with dates rivaling the earliest iron production in any part of sub-Saharan Africa. The Nok furnaces represented a significant technological innovation. Standing approximately 1 meter high, they featured a distinctive design with multiple tuyères, ceramic pipes that delivered air to the furnace interior. These furnaces operated as bloomeries, where iron ore was heated with charcoal to temperatures reaching 1200 degrees Celsius. Analysis of Nok slag samples, published in Ancient African Metallurgy, revealed that Nok smelters were achieving remarkably efficient reduction of local hematite ores, with minimal slag inclusions in the final blooms. The scale of production was impressive. At Taruga alone, archaeologists documented evidence of at least 13 furnaces, indicating substantial, organized iron production. With slag heaps containing an estimated 10,000 kilograms of waste material, according to Jemker's comprehensive site report in 1992. This wasn't small-scale experimentation. This was industrial-level manufacturing that transformed the region's economy and society. The sophisticated ironworking technology of the Nok culture is all the more remarkable given their apparent lack of a preceding bronze or copper phase. Unlike in many other parts of the world, Nok metallurgists appear to have moved directly to ironworking, a technological leap that challenges conventional models of metallurgical development. Archaeologist Augustin Hall described this as a precocious Iron Age in his work West African Early Metallurgies, noting that such technological innovation without precursors is exceptionally rare in world history. The impact of Nok metallurgy extended far beyond their immediate territory. Iron tools allowed for more efficient agriculture, leading to population growth and social complexity. Iron weapons changed the nature of warfare and political organization, and the technology itself appears to have spread to neighboring regions, potentially influencing metallurgical traditions throughout West Africa, as traced through distinctive tuyere designs found as far as 500 kilometers from Nok centers. By 300 CE, the Nok culture had mysteriously declined, but their metallurgical legacy continued. The technological foundation they established would influence iron production across West Africa for centuries to come, with direct technological lineages traceable to later ironworking traditions of the Igbo, Yoruba, and other West African peoples. 4,000 kilometers east of the former Nok territory, along the western shores of Lake Victoria in present-day Tanzania, another revolutionary metallurgical tradition developed among the Haya people, one that would not be matched in Europe until the late 19th century. The Haya are a Bantu-speaking people with a rich cultural heritage dating back millennia. They established complex political organizations and sophisticated agricultural systems. But it was their mastery of iron that most astounded modern researchers when it was rediscovered in the 1970s. Ethnographic accounts by Hans Corey in the 1930s, the Smiths of Western Tanzania, first documented aspects of Haya metalworking, though the full technological significance would not be recognized for decades. In 1976, archaeologist Peter Schmidt began investigating iron smelting among the Haya. What started as ethnographic research into traditional technologies led to a revolutionary discovery. Schmidt worked with a Haya smelter named Mzee Rugamora, whose family had preserved knowledge of traditional ironworking techniques despite their official suppression during the colonial era. Schmidt and Donald Avery published their groundbreaking findings in 1978, describing in detail the technological sophistication they had witnessed. The furnace that Schmidt documented defied Western technological expectations. The Haya furnace utilized a preheated forced draft system, a technique that Western metallurgy wouldn't develop until the invention of the Bessemer converter in 1856. Schmidt's meticulous documentation, including temperature measurements taken during actual smelting operations, provided empirical evidence of the furnace's exceptional efficiency. What made the Haya furnace revolutionary was its ingenious design. Unlike other African furnaces that relied solely on natural draft or hand-operated bellows, the Haya furnace incorporated a preheating chamber. Air was forced through multiple ceramic tuyères into the furnace, but crucially, it first passed through a preheating chamber where it was raised to high temperatures before entering the primary combustion zone. Schmidt's thermal measurements, published in The Culture and Technology of African Iron Production, recorded air temperatures of over 600 degrees Celsius in the preheating chamber. This preheated air dramatically increased combustion efficiency, allowing the furnace to reach temperatures of up to 1800 degrees Celsius, far higher than other bloomery furnaces of the ancient world. At these temperatures, the Haya furnaces could produce carbon steel directly in a single process, something European metallurgists considered impossible until the Industrial Revolution. When Schmidt conducted archaeological excavations at Haya smelting sites, radiocarbon dating revealed something even more remarkable. This advanced technology dated back to at least 2,000 years ago, with some evidence suggesting origins as early as 500 BCE. The implications were profound. Haya had independently developed a technology that paralleled the principles of the Bessemer process, considered one of the most important innovations of the Industrial Revolution, nearly 2 millennia earlier. This challenges the entire narrative of technological progress as a largely European phenomenon. Renowned metallurgist Nicolaas van der Merwe of Harvard University, upon examining the Haya process, acknowledged in writing that the preheating principle represents one of the most remarkable innovations in the history of metallurgy, in his book, African Ironworking. During the colonial period, German and later British authorities actively suppressed indigenous iron production, viewing it as primitive and inefficient compared to imported European iron. Colonial records from the German East Africa Administration, preserved in the Tanzania National Archives and analyzed by historian Jamie Monsonen, document explicit policies banning local smelting and imposing heavy taxes on indigenous smiths. Haya smiths were forced to abandon their craft or practice it in secret. This deliberate disruption nearly erased the knowledge of this sophisticated technology from history. The survival of knowledge about the preheated forced draft technique into the modern era is itself remarkable, a testament to the resilience of Haya cultural traditions despite systematic efforts to eradicate them. Through oral history and the preservation of specialized knowledge within certain families, such as Rugamora's lineage documented in Schmidt's interviews, the memory of this technological marvel persisted long enough to be documented. Modern metallurgical analysis of iron artifacts produced in traditional Haya furnaces confirms their exceptional quality. The steel contains a precisely controlled carbon content and remarkably few impurities, demonstrating sophisticated understanding of the chemical processes involved in ironworking. Comparative analyses conducted at MIT's Materials Science Laboratory in 1982 showed that Haya steel contained fewer slag inclusions than contemporary European bloomery iron, with mechanical properties superior to much of the iron produced in Europe prior to the 18th century. In the forests of what is now southern Nigeria, a different metallurgical tradition achieved unparalleled artistic and technical perfection. From approximately 1200 CE until its violent destruction by British forces in 1897, The Kingdom of Benin developed bronze casting techniques that produced some of the most sophisticated metal sculptures in human history. The origins of the Benin Kingdom remain partially shrouded in myth, but by the 13th century CE, it had emerged as a powerful state with a divine kingship, complex political organization, and flourishing artistic traditions. At its center was the Oba, or king, whose sacred authority was reinforced through elaborate court rituals and commissioned artworks. Oral histories collected by Jacob Egerevba in his seminal work, A Short History of Benin, trace the bronze casting tradition to the reign of Oba Oguola, 1280 to 1295, who reportedly invited master casters from Ife to establish a royal guild in Benin. Before its destruction, Benin City was one of the world's most impressive urban centers. European visitors in the 16th and 17th centuries described it as a metropolis comparable to the great cities of Europe, with broad streets laid out in regular patterns and surrounded by massive earthen walls. At the heart of this city was the Royal Palace, where master metalworkers created their masterpieces. Archaeological surveys by Graham Khanna, 1975, confirmed that the Benin earthworks, consisting of over 16,000 kilometers of interconnected walls and moats, represented the largest single archaeological phenomenon in the world. The iconic Benin bronzes that now reside in museums around the world represent the pinnacle of the kingdom's metallurgical achievement. These works, which consist primarily of brass rather than true bronze, display an artistic sophistication that astonished European observers when they first encountered them. Felix von Luschen, former director of the Berlin Ethnological Museum, wrote in 1919, "These works from Benin are equal to the very finest examples of European casting technique. Benvenuto Cellini could not have cast them better, nor could anyone else before or since. The metalworkers of Benin employed the lost wax casting technique, known as cire perdue. This complex process begins with the creation of a detailed wax model, which is then coated with layers of clay to form a mold. When heated, the wax melts and drains away, leaving a hollow mold into which molten metal is poured. Once cooled, the clay mold is broken to reveal the finished metal piece. What distinguished Benin metalworking was not merely the technique itself, which was known in many parts of the world, but the extraordinary refinement and complexity achieved. The Benin Royal Guild of Bronze Casters, known as the Aigan Aaron Moine, developed the process to a level of precision that allowed them to create incredibly detailed relief sculptures with multiple planes and intricate surface textures. Technical analyses by metallurgist William Fagg, published in Nigerian Images in 1963, revealed that some plaques contained relief elements projecting less than a millimeter from the surface, precision that challenged the technological capabilities of European foundries at the time. These works were not merely decorative. The brass plaques that adorned the palace served as historical records, depicting significant events, royal ceremonies, and interactions with foreign traders. They document the arrival of Portuguese merchants in the late 15th century, showing them with remarkable accuracy in their distinctive dress and carrying weapons unfamiliar to West Africa at that time. Modern metallurgical analysis reveals the sophisticated understanding of materials possessed by Benin's metalworkers. They carefully controlled the composition of their alloys, adjusting the proportions of copper, zinc, and lead to achieve specific properties and visual effects. The copper used in these alloys was sourced through extensive trade networks that connected Benin to mining regions hundreds of kilometers away. In February 1897, a British military force launched what they called a punitive expedition against the Kingdom of Benin, ostensibly in response to the killing of a British delegation. The city was sacked, the Oba was exiled, and thousands of metal artworks were looted. These stolen artifacts were transported to Britain, where they were sold to museums and private collectors around the world. Contemporary accounts from British officers, such as Reginald Bacon's Benin City of Blood, reveal the systematic nature of the looting, with over 2,500 bronze and ivory artwork seized and officially inventoried. The violent appropriation of Benin's metallurgical masterpieces represents more than just cultural theft. It severed the continuous development of a technological tradition that had evolved over centuries. The British raid effectively ended the kingdom's bronze casting tradition, though efforts to revive it began in the 20th century. Today, metal workers in Benin City are working to reclaim their heritage, studying the ancient masterpieces now scattered across global museums and attempting to recover techniques that were nearly lost to colonial violence. Their efforts represent not just artistic revival, but a reclamation of technological knowledge that rightfully belongs to the descendants of those who created it. The metallurgical innovations of the Nok, Haya, and Benin cultures represent just 3 chapters in a much larger story of African technological ingenuity. From the copper mines of ancient Mali to the iron smelting furnaces of Great Zimbabwe, metal technology transformed societies across the continent, enabling agricultural intensification, facilitating trade, and supporting the rise of powerful states. The story of African metallurgy forces us to reconsider fundamental assumptions about the geography of innovation and the nature of technological progress. Far from being peripheral to global developments, African metallurgists were at the forefront of technological advancement for millennia. The colonial period brought deliberate efforts to suppress indigenous metallurgical traditions. European powers banned local iron production to create markets for imported metal goods. Indigenous technical knowledge was dismissed as primitive or superstitious, despite often being more adapted to local conditions than imported methods. This history matters not just for an accurate understanding of Africa's past, but for reimagining the global history of technology. This is not just Africa's story. It is humanity's story, long obscured but now, finally, beginning to be told.